Cell phones nailed to the wall if they went off during shooting, defeating sunlight with thousands of ping-pong balls, and a scrapped sequel with Neytiri fighting the RDA in space. Pandora is a planet full of hidden little details, and we're diving deep into them all. These are the cinema secrets you missed in the Avatar saga so far.
The star who missed out on $500 million. We start with the most shocking of all Avatar secrets, the decision made by movie star Matt Damon. James Cameron initially offered the lead role to Damon, sweetening the deal with an unheard-of perk: 10% of the movie's profits. Damon declined due to his commitments to the Bourne franchise. Avatar then released in 2009 and went on to gross over $2.7 billion, which meant that Damon gave up an estimated $250 million payday, arguably the biggest salary a Hollywood actor never earned, and that was only for the first movie. This is a legendary what could have been, especially as that number would only have risen with The Way of Water, and then again with the upcoming Fire and Ash. More likely, Damon missed out on $500 million. It highlights Cameron's confidence in Avatar. He was willing to share a big chunk of the profits. It also shows the unpredictable nature of casting. Avatar might have had a very different feel with a superstar in the lead. Something having an unknown like Worthington helped audiences accept Jake as everyman. For Damon, it's a reminder that even A-listers can second-guess their choices. CGI cigarettes. Avatar is no stranger to using CGI images and movements. However, an intriguing detail is shown anytime Sigourney Weaver takes a puff. Whenever you see her smoking or with a cigarette in hand, it's CGI. The cigarette and its smoke are entirely digital effects. In filming, Weaver pantomimed with a toothpick or empty fingers. Later, CGI artists added a realistically smoldering cigarette, even matching her inhales and exhales. We can see this clearly in a deleted scene from the movie, The Jungle Boot Camp. If you think the actors looked comfortable in the wild, it's because James Cameron gave them no choice. The most method moment of the production didn't happen on a soundstage, it happened in the Hawaiian rainforest. Before filming a single frame, Cameron flew the entire main cast to Kauai and forced them to live in the jungle for days on a sense memory odyssey. And this wasn't just a camping trip. Imagine A-list stars like Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington running around the rainforest half naked, wearing fake plastic tails and ears, catching fish, and drinking water from leaves. They were essentially playing Survivor with prosthetic alien ears, likely within eyesight of confused tourists at the nearby Four Seasons. Cameron claimed it was to build tribal unity, but honestly, the mental image of the cast cooking in underground fire pits while wearing fake tails is almost crazier than anything in the actual movie. The hidden American flag. A visual metaphor shown is when Jake first meets Colonel Quarich in the Ops Center. The backdrop of Quarich's briefing area subtly resembles the US flag. The wall has evenly spaced horizontal blinds lit by bright light, and in the upper left corner, a solid rectangular vent creates a stars and stripes layout. It's as if the walls themselves form an American flag behind Quarich. This visual Easter egg reinforces Quarich as a symbol of American militarism and colonial power. Fingers and eyebrows. An on-screen detail is how the human-made avatars differ subtly from true Na'vi in anatomy. Jake's avatar has 5 digits on each hand and foot, whereas the native Na'vi have only 4 fingers and toes. Additionally, avatars sport human features such as eyebrows, which the Na'vi lack. Imagine how much more expressive his face must have been to the Na'vi. These traits come from the human DNA in their hybrid bodies. For instance, in one scene you can spot Jake's 5-fingered hand in contrast to Neytiri's 4 when they intertwine their hands. This detail visually marks Jake as biologically different from the Na'vi, even when they appear similar. It's a world-building clue that proves avatars aren't 100% Na'vi. Next up, we have the omniscient scanner. When the medical scanner examines Jake's body, we notice a subtle detail. It scans only the upper half of his body. As we know, Jake is a paraplegic. The machine also seems to know this, sensing no neural activity or function below the waist. The equipment is aware of his condition, reflecting how future tech might adapt to users. Jake's limited in his human body and also able to be restrained in his avatar, as the next secret highlights. Being restrained by the ponytail, not the hands. James Cameron and his crew thought constantly about creating a living ecosystem on Pandora, as well as principles and habits among the Na'vi clan. This is reflected when Jake's avatar gets taken into the clan as a hostage. Instead of cuffing or binding his arms like humans do, they restrain him by grabbing his swin, his ponytail. In Na'vi biology, the braid is highly sensitive and a source of great pain if tugged, essentially immobilizing without the need for rope or chains. This showcases a subtle difference between human and Na'vi biology. It highlights how vital the swin is in Na'vi culture, literally a lifeline. Speaking of the hair, check out the next secret detail. Jake's hair growth. Jake's human hair grows in film. In the beginning, he appears with a buzz cut. At the end, his hair is messy and shaggy, indicating significant time has elapsed since arrival. The film spans at least 3 months. Instead of relying only on dialogue, Cameron shows time's passage organically through Jake's appearance. The old screenwriting advice: show, don't tell. Marine mountain scaling. The Ichneumaya sequence was one of the most iconic scenes in Avatar. When former Marine Jake climbs the dangling vines up to the Banshee, he employs the S-method rope climbing technique. Unlike the Omaticaya hunters who climb with agility using primarily arm strength and a simple foot grip, Jake's method is taught in the US Marines, so he uses this method, wrapping the rope around one leg and foot in an S shape for extra support, inching upwards securely. It's a brilliant bit of character consistency. Jake may be in a new body, but he still thinks like a Marine. Jerking around. When Jake wakes up in his avatar body, he curiously swishes his neural braid around and even lifts it to examine the tendrils. Watching this, Grace chuckles and warns, "Don't play with that, you'll go blind." It's a quick, cheeky line that might fly over younger viewers' heads. The joke references a common older saying, uttered to discourage teenage boys from playing with themselves. Prehistoric roars on Pandora. In key creature sequences, notably the Thanator chase scene, you may have heard something familiar. The Thanator's screech and roar sounds were inspired by the classic movie Jurassic Park. Likewise, the dire horses make snarling and clicking sounds that are modeled on the velociraptors. Famed sound designer Christopher Boyes worked on both films, so depending on how you look at it, it's either a fun tip of the hat or straight up lazy. For some viewers, it's an enjoyment-enhancing Easter egg, that I recognize that roar feeling, while for others, it works subliminally. Coming up, another secret that pays homage to the past. Blind appreciation. When Grace's team first arrives on Pandora and steps out of the shuttle, among the team is Norm Spellman, who you may notice wears a dark cap. On the brim of the baseball cap is a Braille inscription which spells out a number, 1969. This is the year of the Apollo 11 moon landing, making it a pure Easter egg. It's a fitting tribute to space exploration history and humanity's giant leap. Norm, as a scientist, would appreciate that legacy. It suits his nerdy character to wear a hat commemorating the moon landing. A Stanford avatar. A personal Easter egg. When we first meet Grace's avatar, she's notably wearing a Stanford University tank top and continues to wear the top in several scenes. The logo isn't random. It's a nod to Sigourney Weaver's own alma mater. Weaver graduated from Stanford in the early 1970s, and it was her idea to have Grace's avatar sport the Stanford gear. It serves as a subtle character detail suggesting Grace either studied or taught there. Do you think Grace got a special size shirt for her avatar before she even became one? Let us know down in the comments. The Lorax's cameo. An intertextual reference appears in the extended cut of the film when Grace is shown in the schoolhouse at Hell's Gate reading Dr. Seuss's The Lorax to the kids. Grace uses the famous environmental cautionary tale as a lesson for the Na'vi kids learning English. Although not in the original, this detail perfectly aligns with Avatar's central theme of environmentalism. The Lorax essentially faces the same conflict the Na'vi face against the RDA. By including this, Cameron draws a link between our world and Pandora while showing Grace's instilling respect for nature. While the Lorax parallels the story, the next secret foreshadows it, foreshadowing the end at the very beginning. In the opening shot of the theatrical cut, we hear Jake Sully's narration over dreamy imagery of a blue-tinted forest, before transitioning to Jake emerging from cryosleep inside a pod filled with blue light. This image is strikingly similar to the final scene of the movie, Jake's eyes opening in his new Na'vi avatar body after his consciousness transfer. It creates a bookend. The opening image subtly primes the audience for the idea of Jake waking up to a new life. He starts literally immobile, contained behind glass and reliant on machines. By the end, he opens his eyes free and fully alive as a Na'vi. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to like and subscribe. The Na'vi evolution. Have you ever stopped to think about the Pandoran wildlife's anatomy? Specifically, their limbs. Nearly all indigenous animals have 6 limbs. In contrast, the humanoid Na'vi and avatars have the human standard 4 limbs. The Prolemurus, a lemur-like monkey, holds the clue. The blue arboreal creature has what looks like 2 arms, but in reality it's a 6-limbed creature with 2 arms fused. It implies that Pandora's intelligent humanoids might share a common ancestor with 6-limbed animals. Essentially, the Na'vi are the evolutionary odd ones out on Pandora, and the Prolemurus is the missing link demonstrating the genetic evolution in the species we see. If the theory is correct, it would prove Cameron's extreme dedication to internal consistency. The Na'vi, having 4 limbs, may be motivated by the need to make them relatable to humans, but he still seemingly justifies it within the story's science. The obscure name. Unobtanium is the valuable mineral the humans are mining on Pandora. Many viewers chuckled at the term unobtanium, thinking James Cameron just made up a cheesy name to signify a super precious, unattainable resource. It sounds almost like a placeholder joke. However, it's actually a long-standing in-joke in engineering and science circles. Since the 1950s, unobtanium has been used to refer to any material that perfectly fits a given requirement but either doesn't exist or is prohibitively expensive or hard to get. The film's use of it is a nod to that idea. Knowing the real-world origin of the term makes its use in Avatar way less goofy. The seemingly lazy name is actually grounded in tech slang. Now that you've obtained this knowledge, consider leaving a like. A touch of Greek mythology. Throughout the film, learning through visuals and in lore dialogue, we learn that Pandora is a moon. In several shots, you can see a huge gas planet dominating the sky. That's Polyphemus, the planet which Pandora orbits. Polyphemus is named after a cyclops from Greek mythology. True to its name, the planet has a giant storm eye at its equator, much like Jupiter's Great Red Spot, but ring-like, hence the name. Thus, Pandora, which is also named after a Greek woman, is a moon under the watch of a one-eyed giant. Cameron laced Avatar with mythological references, enriching the story's subtext. Polyphemus having one eye and being a looming presence ties into the theme of perception and seeing. Recall the Na'vi greeting, "I see you." The name Pandora itself is also a great fit. In myth, Pandora's actions unleashed hardship, just as humanity's arrival on Pandora brings destruction. These mythological nods add a layer of depth. A dream come true. During the long journey of developing the film, Cameron was inspired to make the Na'vi blue-skinned, in part, by a dream his mother had described to him. Years before Avatar was made, Cameron's mom dreamt of a 12-foot-tall blue woman who had 6 breasts. Young James found the image striking and it stuck in his mind. So when developing the look for Avatar, he recalled that dreamy image. He didn't give the Na'vi multiple breasts, but the blue skin and the immense graceful figure became core to their design. Cameron has openly talked about this familial dream being a spark for the Na'vi's appearance. Cameron's precious mother planted the seed for the idea, but another precious would drive him to bring it to life. Saved by the precious. James Cameron first wrote a treatment for Avatar in 1994, after completing True Lies. He had the story and world in mind, but the technology to realize photorealistic blue aliens and an entire CG planet wasn't there yet. Rather than compromise, Cameron shelved the project for over a decade. Fast forward to the early 2000s and the release of The Two Towers. That film showcased Gollum, a fully CG character acted via motion capture. Seeing Gollum's believable integration, Cameron was convinced that technology had caught up enough to make Avatar. He has said that those examples of compelling photorealistic CG characters in a real-world setting gave him confidence to proceed. So he then dusted off the script, assembled a team, and began the gargantuan production that became Avatar. Peter Jackson's achievements paved the way for Cameron to go bigger. It also highlights Avatar's role in cinema history. After Avatar, performance capture and 3D world building became much more common, but it took a visionary to take the risk at the right time. A real language. The foreign words you heard spoken by the Na'vi and scientists are not gibberish words, by the way. They're actually part of a fully constructed language. Cameron hired linguist Dr. Paul Frommer to create the language from scratch. Starting in 2005, Frommer developed a full language with a unique sound palette, grammar, and over 1,000 words by the time the film was done. The inspiration, or similar structures and dialects, came from elements in Polynesian and African languages, but are entirely original. Like the previous secrets, it adds to the dedication and attention to detail, creating immense authenticity to the film. Rather than using exotic-sounding phrases, having a real language means the dialogue can be translated and make sense if you're determined enough to learn it. Are you determined to subscribe? If you are, you'll enjoy the music of the next secret. Otherworldly instruments. Braveheart composer James Horner literally crafted an otherworldly sound by incorporating newly invented instruments and global music elements in Avatar's score. He didn't want the music of Pandora to sound like a typical orchestra from Earth. He wanted it to sound almost alien. Horner scoured the world for unusual instruments, such as deep primitive flutes from different cultures, including a blend of South American and Finnish flute-like sounds. He then invented custom instruments to create unique tones that didn't exist. For example, he mentions programming instruments that combined qualities of a gamelan with flutes to produce a magical glow in the sound. The immersive power of Avatar owes a great deal to its audio landscape. Horner's approach made Pandora sound as unique as it looks. This was not a cookie-cutter science fiction soundtrack. It also means the Na'vi chants and songs felt authentic to a culture we've never encountered before. from living in a car to starring in Avatar. When James Cameron cast Sam Worthington, the Australian actor was virtually unknown in Hollywood. Worthington even revealed that just before landing the role, he had hit rock bottom. He sold most of his belongings and was living out of his car in Australia. Disillusioned with his life, he had considered quitting acting until he got the audition call for Avatar. The studio flew him to LA. Cameron saw something he liked in the no-name actor and gave him the lead role in the biggest film of all time. Even during audition callbacks, Worthington didn't have a permanent address. Producer John Landau recalled they struggled to reach him at one point because he was away camping without cell reception. Practicing what you preach. James Cameron is a vocal environmentalist and vegan. During the production, he enforced a strictly plant-based menu for the cast and crew on set. No animal products were served. Cameron did this out of principle. Avatar's story champions living in harmony with nature and respecting life. So he wanted production to practice what they preached. This has been confirmed in interviews, articles, and he and Landau have mentioned this in Q&As. Cameron became an even more outspoken vegan activist in the 2010s. Phones holding up production. More of an apocryphal this time, Sam Worthington confirmed that a standing rule on the Avatar set was that no phones were to be used during shoots, otherwise they would be nailed to the wall. Cameron admitted he'd definitely use the nail gun if it came to it, but not in an emotionally enraged way. "I would do it in a calculated theatrical way. That's the beauty of my reputation," he said. "I don't have to shout anymore because the word is out there already." Moving on to the final secret in our countdown, and it is possibly the most bizarre of the lot. An entire mountain renamed. The design team based the look of Pandora's floating mountains on the stone pillars in China's Zhangjiajie National Forest Park. The film, as we know, went on to be the highest-grossing film of all time. This success inspired China to rename one of those pillars. The southern sky column is now known as Avatar Hallelujah Mountain, because according to the park, it's the pillar that inspired Cameron the most.
Now to the franchise's greatest what if.
The scrapped sequel. Before settling on the story of The Way of Water, James Cameron and his writers actually wrote an entirely different Avatar 2 script titled The High Ground. This 130-page script covered the events immediately after the first film. It included an RDA return attack on Pandora and an epic space battle, with Na'vi fighting humans in zero gravity. Cameron said it was a great read, with lots of cool action. However, he felt it lacked the unexpected element and the spiritual depth he wanted, so he scrapped it. Rather than throw it away completely, he turned The High Ground into a graphic novel series and published it in late 2022, helping to fill in the gaps between the first two films. This helps explain why The Way of Water feels so different from a typical sequel. Instead of picking up right after the first film's victory, Cameron jumps forward in time and shifts the focus to Jake's family and the oceans. By pivoting, he opens up new territory, the Reef clans, a whole ocean culture, and the emotional stakes of watching the kids grow up. For fans who still want that missing chapter, the graphic novel series explores the path not taken, making this a rare case where a scrapped blockbuster storyline officially lives in another medium. And for Way of Water fans, it's fun to know how radically different the movie could have been. Early concepts even toyed with Neytiri heading into space. Now, that's something we will keep our fingers crossed for. Quarich's Hamlet moment. In the first film, we see Colonel Miles Quarich killed in action, courtesy of Neytiri's arrows. However, since his consciousness was backed up, he's able to return as a Reccominant in the sequel. When awakened in his new Na'vi body, he and his team immediately resume their mission to take down Jake. While searching the Omaticaya rainforest, he stumbles upon the battlefield where he died. He finds his own skeleton and pointedly picks up the skull. In an overt nod to Shakespeare's Hamlet, he holds it aloft, like Hamlet mourning Yorick, before crushing it to dust. Hamlet is struck by the fragility of human life and the cruelty of fate. Quarich, on the other hand, is a big blue alien on a revenge mission. Kate Winslet's 7-minute breath hold. Portraying Ronal, a pregnant freediving clan leader, required Kate Winslet to endure extended underwater performance capture sessions. Winslet went above and beyond by training in freediving and even managed to hold her breath for an astonishing 7 minutes and 14 seconds in one training session, as verified by the crew. This surpassed Tom Cruise's training record of 6 minutes set during Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. In a video showing Winslet as she finally resurfaces, her hilarious first words are, "Am I dead?" followed by immediately asking how long she lasted. Even though the film likely didn't need that long a shot, Winslet embraced the challenge and set a Hollywood record. This piece of trivia illustrates the intense dedication of the cast and the film's commitment to authenticity. Rather than relying solely on CGI, actors actually performed underwater. Winslet's feat, in particular, became a bragging point for the production. An impressed James Cameron feigned surprise, joking that Kate is not competitive at all. It also neatly ties back to Titanic. Winslet, who famously endured freezing waters on Cameron's set in 1997, now conquered a new water challenge. Next, Quarich shows us another secret. You're still not in Kansas. Early in the film, Quarich 2.0 repeats his own famous line from the first Avatar, "You are not in Kansas anymore." It's delivered to the same group of recon Marines as they prepare to re-enter Pandora. This line, originally a Wizard of Oz reference and used to toughen up new recruits, is resurrected almost verbatim. It's a cheeky continuity nod for fans, emphasizing how little Quarich's gung-ho attitude has changed even if the context is ironic. It's also one of many self-referential moments that tie the sequel to the original film. A blink and you'll miss it cameo. As V1 Quarich's pre-recorded message plays to explain the memory transfer process, corporate boss Parker Selfridge briefly appears in the background of the footage. He interjects to correct Quarich on a detail true to the character we remember. This brief cameo reminds us of the villain behind the villain, the corporate administrator of the RDA's Pandora operations, who was sidelined by the RDA's more gung-ho military elements. Though Selfridge isn't part of the main story, his presence in archival video maintains continuity. It's a rewarding Easter egg for attentive viewers and underscores that the same profit-driven bureaucracy still looms behind the military force on Pandora. Echoes of Titanic's sinking. In the climactic battle sequence, the Sea Dragon capsizes and begins to sink. The ship overturns and floods, leading to scenes reminiscent of Cameron's Titanic, roaring water pouring down corridors and stairwells, and our heroes navigating rising waters in confined spaces. Jake and Loak struggle for air in a submerged compartment, and Neytiri and Took nearly drown as water surges around them. The cinematography features half-submerged camera placement, a signature Titanic style. This is Cameron paying homage to himself. The parallel intensifies the climax by using visuals that are familiar and thrilling to many fans. Beyond the Easter egg aspect, these callbacks underscore the Way of Water's themes of love, sacrifice, and desperation in a sinking ship scenario, emotionally aligning Jake and Neytiri's fight for their children with Jack and Rose's fight for survival on the Titanic. The next secret references another ocean-based movie classic, Pandora's Free Willy. Jake's second son, Loak, befriends an outcast Tulkun named Payakon, a giant whale-like creature, and their friendship becomes a major subplot. In the finale, the boy and whale duo team up, with Payakon decisively attacking the RDA ship to protect Loak and the Na'vi. There's a strong parallel with Free Willy, a story of a boy freeing an oppressed orca. The boy and his whale trope emphasizes themes of empathy across species and the intelligence of Pandora's creatures, giving Loak's arc a familiar feel while adding a new twist. The whale doesn't just get freed, he becomes a warrior ally. The Free Willy reference offers a lighter parallel, but the next secret talks about a dark parallel. A massive RDA ship and smaller submersibles orchestrate a brutal chase, trapping a Tulkun mother and calf. The hunters kill them and extract only a vial's worth of fluid from the adult's brain, leaving the rest of the enormous corpse to rot. This is an intentional allegory to the real-world exploitation of wildlife. It echoes how human colonizers and whalers slaughtered majestic animals for one profitable part, like killing whales for a few barrels of oil or hunting buffalo for hides, leaving most of the carcass unused. The film taps into that real-world atrocity to paint the RDA's actions as not just violent, but wasteful, immoral, and very upsetting. Very soon, we find out about Earth's quest for immortality. We learn that the substance extracted from Tulkun brains, known as amrita, halts human aging. The RDA crew mentions a single vial is worth billions as a result. This implies that back on Earth, the wealthy are seeking literal immortality. Meanwhile, Earth is dying, overpopulated and ravaged. The film doesn't explicitly spell out the connection, but context invites us to connect the dots. If rich humans can stop aging, population pressures and resource consumption would skyrocket. It's a dark extension of the film's critique of corporate greed. Not only will RDA strip Pandora of resources, they'll pervert the natural life-death cycle. It's a speculative angle, but it helps us understand why the RDA is obsessed with amrita. They're literally selling a chance to play God. Real ocean tech and sci-fi skin. The design and function of the RDA's underwater fleet was created by blending real aquatic life with cutting-edge submersible technology. For instance, the crab sub's multi-legged design and mechanical claws mirror real remotely operated underwater vehicles used in ocean research. James Cameron, an obsessive deep-sea explorer, infused the design with influences from his real-world submersible experiences. For Cameron, it's a signature touch, and by making the tech look familiar, he blurs the line between speculative future and present reality, which makes Avatar's environmental warnings hit closer to home. Sigourney Weaver becomes a teen again. Despite being in her 70s, Sigourney Weaver convincingly portrays a 14-year-old Na'vi girl, Kiri. Remarkably, her voice for Kiri was not digitally altered. It's her own, achieved through pure acting technique. To prepare, Weaver spent time with actual teenagers, auditing high school classes incognito to observe how Gen Z kids talk, move, and slouch. She even underwent the same rigorous physical training as the younger cast, including combat and freediving, reportedly holding her breath for over 6 minutes in training. Her transformation underscores the film's theme of rebirth in a meta way. Which brings us to Kiri as Pandora's Messiah. Kiri is introduced as Grace Augustine's daughter, born mysteriously from Grace's inert avatar, with no known father. Throughout the film, Kiri displays an extraordinary connection to Awa and Pandora's life forms. She communes with the dead through Awa and even saves her family by guiding glowing fish to light their escape path. These elements, a virgin birth, miraculous powers, communion with the planet's deity, are reminiscent of religious figures like Jesus Christ, and it's strongly suggested that she may even be Awa incarnate. This adds depth to the saga's spiritual side and hints at Kiri's critical role in Pandora's future. Will she unite Na'vi and redeem humans in the future? What do you think about this? Let us know down below in the comments. Let's move on to the next secret: underwater sign language. It's no secret that an entirely new language was created for the Na'vi in the first film, but underwater they cannot speak. So whenever the Metkayina communicate underwater, they use their own sign language to communicate. That's right, another whole new language. Rather than just making up a few gestures on the fly, the filmmakers enlisted deaf actor and consultant C.J. Jones to create an entire Na'vi sign language known as NSL from scratch. Over 2 years, he developed around 150 unique signs to be used by the Reef clan, adapted for Na'vi anatomy and culture. The actors even learned this language for their underwater scenes, greatly adding to the authenticity. Speaking of authentic, Metkayina physiology. The reef-dwelling Metkayina clan aren't just blue Na'vi with tattoos, they have distinct physical adaptations for ocean life. Their skin tone is a greenish aqua. They sport thicker, paddle-like tails and broader forearms with extra muscle and fin-like skin for swimming. Even their chests and lungs appear larger, indicating higher lung capacity. These traits evolved to help them swim fast and hold breath longer in the water. In contrast, Jake's family from the forest are leaner, with narrower tails built for climbing trees. The film visually contrasts these when the children compare their hands and tails. The depth of Pandora's world-building remains immense. The Metkayina is not only believable as a culture distinct from the Omaticaya, but it also feeds into the story with the Sully kids being labeled freaks for having 5 fingers and thinner tails. The physical differences emphasize that Pandora's peoples are diverse and have their own intraspecies biases, just like our own. The history within tribes. The Metkayina clan, led by Tonawari and Ronal, are hesitant to accept the forest-born Sully family. Over time, these groups overcome differences and unite, but not without early friction. These fears hint at a longer, more complicated history of clan conflicts and tensions. Avatar has always drawn from the history of colonization. Here, the film nods to how Native American tribes and other indigenous groups sometimes struggle to unify against a common invader due to long-standing internal conflicts. By showing clans initially at odds, Cameron avoids an overly romanticized all-Na'vi instantly band together trope and instead adds nuance. Unity is possible, but it must be earned by overcoming the past and prejudices. Acknowledging this reality makes the eventual alliance between Forest and Reef Na'vi all the more satisfying. The 4-year delay that fooled an actress. The Way of Water endured an infamously long production and post-production, with principal filming wrapping back in 2018. The gap between production and release was so long that Edie Falco, who plays General Ardmore, was convinced the film had quietly flopped. On a talk show in late 2022, she recalled asking in disbelief, "It didn't? It hasn't come out yet?" This anecdote shows just how drawn out the Avatar process is, and how obsessive Cameron is about every detail of post-production. Falco's candid confession got laughs, but also sympathy. Cameron even called her after the story went viral, laughing it off in light of the film's massive success. Defetishizing the gunplay. The Way of Water features plenty of weapons and battles, but also a shift in James Cameron's sensibilities. The director cut around 10 minutes of gunplay from The Way of Water in order to get rid of some of the ugliness and avoid fetishizing guns, especially given real-world gun violence. It's a surprising stance from a director whose classics, like the Terminator films and Aliens, are packed with iconic shootouts, but Cameron claimed that his move to New Zealand, where firearms are far less common, has given him a new perspective on Hollywood's relationship with guns. That shines through in the final battle, which, though intense, relies more on bows, creatures, and hand-to-hand fighting. Staying on James Cameron, let's look at some of his self-homages. The legendary director sneaks in numerous and humorous references to his own earlier movies. Here are a few notable examples. Firstly, the RDA's dropship deployment on Pandora, year 2170, resembles a scaled-up version of the Colonial Marines' drop in Aliens. Secondly, Jake has turned his kids into a trained guerrilla unit, addressing him as Sir. This recalls how Sarah Connor trained young John, a hardened parent preparing children for war. Next up, we have Neytiri's ferocious mother warrior persona, which recalls both Ripley in Aliens and Sarah in T2. Cameron has always loved a mama bear character, and Neytiri, screaming in rage to protect her kids, slots neatly into that lineage. Another fun parallel is that he even had Ripley metaphorically adopt Newt in Aliens, and Neytiri literally adopts Kiri and Spider. Then there's The Way of Water's final hostage showdown with Quarich and Neytiri holding each other's children at knife point, an echo of scenes in Aliens and T2. In the latter, Sarah nearly kills Miles Dyson in front of his family, and in Aliens, Ripley threatens the Queen's eggs to negotiate the release of Newt. This time round, the Mexican standoff between multiple parents and children feels like an ultimate Cameron culmination of those themes. Last but not least, even hardware gets a nod. The AMP suits, which feature heavily in the first movie too, are seemingly a direct descendant of the power loader from Aliens. All these self-references offer a wink to fans and link The Way of Water to a larger Cameron-verse where threads of colonization, fiercely protective parents, and the conflict between nature and technology keep resurfacing. Cameron is clearly honoring and one-upping his old work. Everything is bigger. The dropships, the destruction, the stakes, but the emotional core of family and survival stays the same. Next, we have something bizarrely low-tech and probably the highest-tech movie of all time. How to block water reflections. There is a major technical challenge with underwater motion capture. The surface of the water reflects light, which confuses the infrared cameras that capture the actors' movements. Cameron's team solved this in a brilliantly basic way. They poured a layer of small white balls, about the size of ping pong balls, to create a 4 to 6 inch thick layer on the surface of the water. This ball pit cover broke up reflections and also acted as a light diffuser. When actors needed to surface, they could easily push through them. A similar solution had been used in 1989's The Abyss as well, with black beads used to create total darkness. For Way of Water, they used white balls to help light the primarily daytime scenes. This is a brilliant example of practical ingenuity. Rather than fixing everything digitally, they engineered a more camera-friendly filming environment. The floating balls allowed crystal-clear underwater capture of the actors' facial performances and motions. This trick shows the benefit of having a career's worth of experience to draw upon. Cameron riffing on one of his old innovations and upgrading it for Pandora. In an age of wall-to-wall CGI, it's refreshingly old school. And those are the hidden stories behind Avatar: The Way of Water. Which secret was your favorite? Drop it in the comments, leave a like if you learned something new, and don't forget, you're not in Kansas anymore, so you might as well subscribe.